I've been a pedestrian commuter for about 2 years now. I work at a techie nonprofit in DuPont Circle, and the thing I love about being able to walk to work is that it lets you slip into this awesome state of mindfulness where you're simultaneously completely zoned out, but also incredibly focused on the world around you. It's actually something I associate with traveling or being a tourist because I'm someone who needs to walk all over a city and stare at everything to feel like I've been there. And similarly, when I started walking to work and began to slip into this state here in DC, I began to notice things. And at first they were just little doodles on the backs of street signs, but then I saw the bigger stuff, like historic statues. And if that sounds backwards, consider how easy it is to just walk past a generic historic figure that you don't recognize, as opposed to the allure of an unexpected robot sticker. They're very different. After months of this increased noticing, I discovered to my horror that I was passing by a mural on Connecticut Avenue, the main drag of my commute, every single day, staring right at it and just not seeing it. Being a good internet nerd, I turned immediately to Google because I had to know everything about this piece. But I had a problem. How do I find it? If I were to use what I would usually turn to, which are descriptives, I would type in mural of statue with glass balls, and I would get some unsavory search results. So instead, I tried to search by the place. I typed in DuPont Circle mural and got super lucky because that's actually the name of this piece. It's also what the piece is about. You see, the statue that's portrayed in this mural is the same statue that you'll find at DuPont Circle Fountain. And although I end my commute there every day, I was amazed that I could not recognize something so familiar when I saw it in a different context. It occurred to me that in this way, public art is sort of this little hidden kernel of knowledge in and about a neighborhood, almost like an asterisk in a citation if we're thinking in literary terms, or something that's referred to as metadata in the world of programming. I promise we're not going to get too heady, but metadata is, as the name implies, information about information. It allows us to tag information with helpful notes that give context and make it more useful later. To give an example, say a developer is going to write a web page about DuPont Circle, and I promise we're not going to get too heady. This is what it would look like. And if she was being very mindful, she could include a few lines of metadata to note important information, like her name, Jane Doe, as the author. She could include the time and date that she wrote the code, or tags called keywords, which describe the issues and ideas talked about in the web page. Now, most of us don't need to think about metadata because as we stroll along on the internet, we're never going to see it, because we'd actually have to look at the code to see it. And that doesn't mean that metadata isn't useful. It's insanely useful to search engines, which actually use those keywords to rank your search results, and to anyone who just wants to learn more about the code behind a web page. And that is how I see public art. Let me take you there. The way we move through cyberspace is very similar to the way that we move through public space. And just as you don't have to look at the code behind a web page in order to appreciate the experience of being on a web page, you also don't need to know every single detail about a piece of art in order to appreciate that art. But when you do look and you're able to see those details, so much is revealed. Whether it's a wheat paste or a statue or a mural or a mosaic, who created the art, when and with what funds, let alone what the piece is about, speaks volumes about the neighborhood where you find it, and in some, the city where all these pieces are placed. Public art preserves the history of a neighborhood. Its presence marks change. And it gives us a living outlet to express how we feel and what we think about the place where we live. And in this way, art is information. And we have barely begun to explore how to use the history and the context that it gives us. And we're not going to explore very much of it if we lose the ability to keep track of it, because murals fade, and wheat paste and stickers get scraped and torn down, statues get unwanted additions, and we forget or just miss entirely the relevance of beautiful, historically and personally significant works because it's no one's job to remember. We've been raised on museum field trips where curators have done all this research and can tell us amazing things about the art inside. And so we're confident that should it ever occur to us to look for that metadata stored in public art, it would be as accessible for the works on the outside of buildings as it is for the works within them. But alas, public art, like most public resources, faces a challenge: a lack of stewardship, a lack of curation. And sometimes that's what makes public art so great. There's this wildness to it. But like most wild things we love, we take public art for granted. Just as we take for granted that museums can hire a technical staff to digitize their paintings, and even the smallest gallery can scap up a social media savvy intern to give them a Foursquare location and upgrade their website. And while there are people out there who are trying to curate public art online, there is one thing that is often overlooked. Public art, even temporary public art, is tied to a physical place. That is why it can say so much about the street or the ward where you find it. It's a citation on a place. And so that place where you can walk right up to it in the real world and be in front of that art and appreciate it, that is critical information to include in the metadata. And I know that probably sounds antithetical to this whole online thing, because it is very easy to think about the internet and cyberspace as distinct from the world that we touch and we feel and we live in. But it is not. No, actually, it is super alarmingly easy to translate location into something that you can interact with online, because you can map it. Now, it's a bit of a fad right now, I will totally give it that, but it's also incredibly warranted. Maps not only allow us to navigate the physical world in the digital, they also allow us to overlay digital information on the real world that's been all mashed up. So, you're looking for a place to go to lunch. If you search on a map, not only are you going to get a plotted list of places that you could go in this physical DC and eat at, you're also going to get reviews from other people who have been to that place. You can head to the website, see the menu right there, all in one place. And you could get this information if you were to go through a search engine, and you may still, if you care less about where the lunch place is and more about just the top 10 lunch spots in DuPont Circle. But if you care where you're going to want a map. And in the summer of 2010, when I began to Google DC's public art in earnest, I wanted a map of DC's public art really, really badly. I was having a decent time hunting and picking through search engine results, largely because we are actually very fortunate in having a local blogging community, our newspapers and academics who invest in creating rich profiles of the district's art and artists. But using this method of searching and hunting and picking seemed like such a loss, and I couldn't shake the feeling that all of this rich information was just bleeding through our fingers. So I was going to start a public art mapping project, and I got involved in this graffiti mapping group that was part of a big DC festival called DC Week. But I didn't want to just map graffiti. I wanted to map graffiti, or street art, in the context of other public works. And besides, there are already tons of other graffiti mapping platforms out there, although most of them are hell-bent on helping cities track it down and destroy it, which I wanted no part of, either side. What I did want was an easy-to-use platform that anyone could access that would show all this public art that is all around us, where they could see right in front of them the richness and the variety of that art, get a glimpse at that metadata, the history of those pieces, and be inspired to explore this city differently. And I wanted to do it in a way that would allow other people to contribute to, too. The project that came out of this aspiration is something called Art Around. We've been working quietly in fits and starts over the last 2 years. And I am proud to say that as of today, and just in time for the 5x5, DC's newest public arts festival, we are out of beta and out the door, which our partners, the DC Commission for the Arts and Humanities, really appreciates. Now, you each have your own paths around the city, and I'm sure that while you're walking your dogs or coming back from the grocery store or doing your own commute to work, there are certain pieces of public art that you look for, and you might not find if you go on Art Around. But that's because we need your help. Mapping all the things is a crazy challenge. It is super ambitious, and we recognize that. But we're optimistic because we believe in crowdsourcing. By crowdsourcing, we give everyone the option of contributing the information that they know and the pieces of public art that they see, and the chance to be a community curator to contribute to this archive. And in so doing, we not only increase the amount of information that we can collect, the amount of art, we also have the ability to take in new bits of information, the communal knowledge that exists about these pieces, the shared stories, and to link to and acknowledge all that great research that is being done out there about the district's public art. You know, when I started this project, I thought that the challenge was going to be that people don't care about public art, that we don't value it or the information that it carries, and that all those people out there who are trying to map public art, they're just crazy. But I actually don't believe that now. Because even if we're not looking mindfully at art, I mean everyone in this room, everyone in this city, maybe not our entire society, but we're going to get there. Even if we're not looking mindfully, we are constantly looking at and not through public art. And I know this because we are constantly photographing it. And with each photo, we are preserving it and adoring it, and we're sharing it. It's just that after we click the shutter button or the tweet button to send it to our friends, we close the tabs on our mental browsers. We surf on to another part of public space, the way we surf the internet. Life is busy, and we all have limited mental bandwidth. But if there is one thing I can ask you after this talk, it's this. Take a day, if you are very generous, an afternoon, just one walk, and pretend to be a tourist. Pretend you're traveling. I know it's DC, we have a lot of feelings about tourists, but you just gotta try. Tourists have the luxury of being stunned by newness, of walking through an unfamiliar space, prepared to appreciate everything that makes it different. And I want you to feel that, but I want you to feel it here where you live. I'm proud to consider myself a local tourist, and I hope you will be too. Thanks.